"Happy anniversary, dear," Theo said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. His embrace felt stiff, lacking the warmth it once held. "What's the occasion?" I asked, trying to hide my apprehension as I turned to face him. "Don't be coy," he chuckled, a hint of condescension in his voice. "It's been a year since you got that fancy promotion at work." I forced a smile, ignoring the subtle jab. "It's not that big of a deal, really." Theo's eyes narrowed as he scanned the room, his gaze landing on his sister Delilah. "Over here, sis! Marianne wants to celebrate her big promotion," he called out, making air quotes with his fingers. Delilah sauntered over, her perfectly sculpted eyebrows raised. "Oh, do tell us more about this monumental achievement." My stomach twisted as I realized this was no celebration, it was a staged mockery. "It's just a new role with more responsibility," I mumbled, feeling smaller with every word. "That's putting it modestly," Theo chimed in, his voice laced with sarcasm. "Marianne's the new assistant marketing director. Quite the meteoric rise, wouldn't you say?" Delilah let out a derisive laugh. "Assistant director? That's adorable, and here I thought you'd actually accomplish something worthwhile." My cheeks burned as Theo's family members joined in the laughter, their snickers piercing my soul. I wanted to scream, to defend myself, but the words caught in my throat. "Don't be too hard on her," Theo said, placing a hand on my shoulder that felt more like a shackle than a comforting gesture. "It's not her fault she lacks ambition." The room erupted in laughter once more, and I found myself suffocating in a sea of mockery. I wanted to lash out, to demand respect, but years of conditioning had stripped me of my voice. "I'm proud of you, honey," Theo whispered in my ear, his breath hot against my skin. "But let's be realistic. It's a consolation prize compared to my success." As the laughter faded, I caught Delilah's eye. Her smirk sent a chill down my spine, reminding me that in this family, I would never be more than the butt of their cruel jokes. That night, as Theo slept soundly beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and for the first time, I questioned the very foundation of my marriage. Was this what love looked like? Or had I been blinded by a facade, a carefully crafted illusion of happiness? I knew in that moment that something had to change. The path forward was shrouded in uncertainty, but one thing was clear. I could no longer remain a passive participant in my own life. It was time to take control, to demand the respect I deserved, no matter the cost. In the days following that fateful party, my eyes were opened to Theo's true nature. Little things I had once brushed off now felt like glaring red flags. The way he criticized my spending habits, even though my income contributed to our lifestyle. How he made major decisions without consulting me, like buying a new car or planning vacations with his family. "I thought you'd be happy," he said when I confronted him about the surprise party he had thrown for my promotion. "It was a celebration of your achievement." "Was it, though?" I challenged him. "Or was it just another opportunity for you and your family to belittle me?" Theo scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "Don't be so sensitive. We were just having a bit of harmless fun." My blood boiled at his nonchalance. Harmless fun? Being mocked and ridiculed in front of his entire family felt like a punch to the gut. Things only escalated from there. A few weeks later, we attended a family dinner at Delilah's house. As we sat around the table, she couldn't resist taking a jab at me. "So, Marianne," she began, her perfectly painted lips curling into a sneer. "How's the assistant director gig treating you? Fetching coffee and making copies, I presume?" Theo barked out a laugh, slapping his thigh in amusement. "That's a good one, sis." I clenched my jaw, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. "Actually, I oversee a team of marketers and manage multi-million-dollar campaigns." Delilah rolled her eyes. "Sure, sweetie, whatever helps you sleep at night." The rest of the dinner was a blur of condescending remarks and barely concealed insults. By the time we left, my self-esteem was shattered, and the once solid foundation of my marriage felt like it was crumbling beneath my feet. Despite Theo's assurances that his family was just joking around, their words cut deeper than any blade. I couldn't shake the feeling that their disdain for me ran deeper than mere sibling ribbing. As the weeks wore on, Theo's behavior grew increasingly erratic. Late nights at the office became the norm, and he grew distant, often retreating to his study for hours on end with his phone glued to his hand. Whenever I tried to broach the subject, he brushed me off, claiming he was simply swamped with work. One night, as I was folding laundry, my hand brushed against Theo's pants pocket and his phone clattered to the floor. The screen lit up, revealing a string of flirtatious texts from a woman named Erica, a name I recognized as one of his coworkers. My heart pounded in my chest as I scrolled through the messages, each one more damning than the last. Promises of secret rendezvous, suggestive photos, and declarations of desire that made my stomach churn. As the weight of Theo's betrayal crashed over me, I sank to the floor, clutching the phone in my trembling hands. Tears streamed down my face, but I refused to make a sound. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of hearing my pain. In that moment, a fire ignited within me, burning away the last vestiges of the naive, trusting woman I had once been. Theo's disrespect and infidelity were unforgivable, and I vowed to make him pay for every ounce of anguish he had inflicted upon me. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. This was no longer a battle for my marriage. It was a war for my self-respect, and I intended to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. In the days following my discovery of Theo's infidelity, I felt like a stranger in my own home. The walls that once provided comfort now seemed to close in on me, suffocating me with the weight of his betrayal. Theo remained oblivious to my newfound knowledge, carrying on with his charade of late nights and furtive phone calls. Each time he stepped out of the house, my heart raced with the possibility that he was meeting up with his mistress. "Working late again?" I asked one evening as he prepared to leave, my voice laced with barely concealed contempt. He barely spared me a glance, his focus glued to his phone. "Yeah, big project deadline coming up." "I see." I crossed my arms, fighting the urge to hurl the nearest object at his head. "Well, don't work too hard." Theo chuckled, finally meeting my gaze. "Don't wait up, dear." As the front door slammed shut behind him, I let out a shuddering breath, feeling more alone than ever before. Over the next few weeks, I became a master of deception, carefully monitoring Theo's movements while maintaining a facade of ignorance. I combed through his emails, phone records, and credit card statements, piecing together the sordid details of his affair. The evidence mounted, each new discovery chipping away at what little remained of my trust in him. Intimate messages exchanged during work hours, hotel receipts for clandestine meetups, and even a record of a suspicious wire transfer to an unknown account. As the truth unraveled before me, I found myself questioning everything I thought I knew about our marriage. Had Theo ever truly loved me, or had I been a mere prop in his carefully orchestrated charade? One night, as I lay awake in bed, my thoughts consumed by the tumultuous storm of emotions raging within me, Theo's phone buzzed with an incoming call. Glancing over, I saw the name Erica flash across the screen, a stark reminder of his infidelity. In a moment of reckless abandon, I answered the call, pressing the phone to my ear with trembling fingers. "Hello?" a sultry voice purred. I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat, a wave of nausea washing over me. "Theo?" Erica prompted. "Are you there?" Swallowing hard, I found my voice. "He's not available at the moment." There was a beat of silence, and then a husky chuckle. Well, Mrs. Belmont, I was wondering when you'd catch on." My grip tightened on the phone, knuckles whitening with fury. "How dare you?" "Oh, sweetie, don't act so surprised," Erica cooed. "Did you really think a man like Theo would be satisfied with just one woman?" Her words cut deeper than any knife, shattering the last vestiges of my denial. Theo's infidelity was no longer a suspicion. It was a brutal reality, laid bare before me. As the call disconnected, I felt a surge of determination coursing through my veins. No more tears, no more self-pity. It was time to take action, to make Theo answer for his sins, and reclaim the dignity he had stolen from me. With a newfound sense of purpose, I began to meticulously document every shred of evidence, every damning piece of information that would expose his lies and bring his world crashing down around him. The time for revenge had arrived, and nothing, not even the man I had once loved, would stand in my way. In the weeks that followed, I became a master of deception, carefully concealing my growing rage beneath a veneer of forced normalcy. Theo remained oblivious to my newfound knowledge, carrying on with his selfish charade as if nothing were amiss. One fateful evening, as we sat down for dinner, Theo cleared his throat, a self-satisfied smirk plastered across his face. "I have some exciting news," he announced, his eyes gleaming with barely contained glee. I arched an eyebrow, bracing myself for whatever bombshell he was about to drop. "Oh? I've arranged a little getaway for the family," he proclaimed, puffing out his chest. "A luxury cruise through the Caribbean, my treat." A knot formed in the pit of my stomach as I realized the implications of his words. "The whole family?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Theo's smile faltered momentarily. "Well, not you, of course. You've been so busy with work lately, I figured you wouldn't have the time." The casual dismissal of my presence, the blatant exclusion from what should have been a shared experience, felt like a slap in the face. "I see," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "And when were you planning on telling me about this little excursion?" Theo waved a dismissive hand. "Does it really matter? It's just a cruise. No need to make a big deal out of it." My hands balled into fists beneath the table, nails digging into my palms as I fought to maintain my composure. "No big deal?" I echoed, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "It's a big deal to me, Theo. We're supposed to be partners, remember?" He scoffed, rolling his eyes. "Don't be so dramatic. It's not like I'm leaving you behind forever." In that moment, something inside me snapped. The years of disrespect, the belittling, the infidelity, it all came crashing down upon me, and I could no longer hold back the floodgates of rage. "You know what, Theo?" I hissed, slamming my palms on the table with enough force to rattle the dishes. "Go on your precious cruise, have a grand old time with your family and your mistress." His eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear cross his features. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb with me," I spat. "I know all about your little affair with Erica, the late nights, the secret meetings. Did you really think I was that blind?" Theo's face drained of color, his mouth opening and closing like a gasping fish. "Marianne, I can explain." "Save it," I cut him off, rising from my chair with a newfound sense of power. "I'm done with your lies, your deceit. This marriage is over, Theo, and when the dust settles, you'll wish you had treated me with the respect that I deserved." Without another word, I turned on my heel and stormed out of the room, leaving a stunned Theo in my wake. The years of pent-up anger and resentment had finally reached a boiling point, and there was no turning back. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. Theo's betrayal demanded retribution, a reckoning that would strip him of everything he held dear, his wealth, his status, his precious family, and I intended to be the architect of his downfall, meticulously dismantling the facade of his perfect life brick by brick. As I retreated to the sanctuary of my bedroom, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. The path ahead would be arduous, fraught with pain and sacrifice, but I was ready to face it head-on. No longer would I be the meek, subservient wife, content to endure her husband's disrespect in silence. This was war, and I intended to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. In the days following my explosive confrontation with Theo, the once familiar walls of our home felt like they were closing in on me. The sense of betrayal hung thick in the air, suffocating me with every breath. Theo, for his part, remained uncharacteristically subdued. Gone were the smug grins and dismissive attitudes. In their place was a wary silence, as if he were a cornered animal waiting for the killing blow. I knew better than to let my guard down. Theo's veneer of contrition was merely a ploy, a desperate attempt to regain the upper hand in our crumbling marriage. But I was done playing his games, done being the docile, forgiving wife. It was time to take action. With trembling fingers, I dialed the number of my oldest and dearest friend, Elena. She had been my rock through the tumultuous years, a steadfast source of support and sage advice. "Elena, I need your help," I confessed, my voice thick with unshed tears. Within the hour, she was at my doorstep, enveloping me in a warm embrace as I poured out the sordid tale of Theo's infidelity and disrespect. "That bastard," she seethed, her eyes blazing with righteous fury. "We'll make him pay for what he's done, Marianne, I promise you that." Her unwavering loyalty was a balm to my wounded soul, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I allowed myself a glimmer of hope. Together, we formulated a plan. A meticulously crafted strategy that would not only expose Theo's misdeeds, but also ensure my financial security in the aftermath. No stone would be left unturned, no detail overlooked. Elena's connections proved invaluable, leading us to a formidable ally, a seasoned divorce attorney named Richard Kingsley. His reputation preceded him, a man known for his unwavering tenacity and razor-sharp legal acumen. As we sat in his immaculate office, I laid out the evidence I had gathered, each damning piece of information painting a clearer picture of Theo's deceit. "This is airtight," Kingsley murmured, his eyes narrowing as he pored over the documents. "Your husband won't know what hit him." A grim smile tugged at the corners of my lips. "Good. I want him to feel every ounce of pain he's inflicted upon me." Kingsley nodded, a glint of respect flickering in his steely gaze. "Believe me, Mrs. Belmont, by the time we're through, he'll wish he had never crossed you." With our alliance solidified, we set our plan in motion. Every move was meticulously calculated, every contingency accounted for. We were a well-oiled machine, driven by a singular purpose: to decimate Theo's world and leave him with nothing but the ashes of his deceit. As the days ticked by, I found myself growing stronger, more resolute in my convictions. The fear and self-doubt that had once plagued me were replaced by a burning determination, a hunger for justice that could not be sated until Theo had paid the ultimate price. With Alina and Kingsley by my side, I was no longer the meek, downtrodden wife. I was a force to be reckoned with, a woman reborn from the ashes of her shattered dreams, and I would stop at nothing to achieve my vengeance. The battle lines had been drawn, and there could be no retreat, no surrender. This was war, and I intended to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. The anticipation hung thick in the air as I stepped through the ornate double doors of the Belmont family estate. The grand foyer, once a symbol of opulence and prestige, now felt like the stage for a long-overdue reckoning. Theo's family had gathered for their annual summer soirée, a lavish affair that I had once looked forward to with eager anticipation. But tonight, as I surveyed the sea of impeccably dressed guests, I felt nothing but a burning determination to strip away the veneer of civility and expose the rot that festered beneath. Delilah was the first to spot me, her perfectly manicured eyebrows arching in mock surprise. "Well, well, if it isn't the assistant director herself," she drawled, her lips curling into a condescending sneer. "To what do we owe the pleasure?" Before I could respond, Theo appeared at her side, his face etched with a mixture of confusion and thinly veiled dread. "Marianne, what are you doing here?" I met his gaze with unwavering resolve, my grip tightening around the envelope clutched in my trembling hands. "I think it's time we had a little family discussion." A hush fell over the crowd as I strode purposefully towards the center of the room, my every step echoing like a death knell. Theo and Delilah trailed behind me, their expressions a mixture of bewilderment and growing unease. "What's this all about, dear?" Theo's mother, Evelyn, asked, her perfectly coiffed hair and impeccable pearls a facade of gentility. I squared my shoulders, drawing strength from the knowledge that I held the power, the evidence that would bring their carefully constructed world crashing down around them. "This is about the truth," I announced, my voice ringing out loud and clear. "The truth about your son's lies, his deceit, and his utter lack of respect for me and our marriage." A murmur rippled through the crowd, but I pressed on, undeterred. "For years I've endured your mockery, your thinly veiled insults," I continued, my gaze sweeping over the assembled guests. All the while, Theo was carrying on an affair, squandering our hard-earned money on lavish rendezvous and secret gifts for his mistress. Theo's face drained of color, his lips parting in a wordless protest, but I wasn't finished. With a flourish, I tore open the envelope, scattering its contents across the polished marble floor. Financial statements, hotel receipts, and damning text messages spilled out, laying bare the sordid truth of Theo's betrayal. "These are just the tip of the iceberg," I declared, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "Theo has been living a lie, and it's time for the world to see him for the selfish, disloyal man he truly is." A strangled gasp escaped Delilah's lips as she bent to examine the evidence, her perfectly manicured nails trembling. "Theo, what have you done?" But Theo remained frozen, his eyes wide with horror as the weight of his transgressions crashed down upon him. "I want a divorce," I announced, the words hanging in the air like a death sentence. "And I'm taking everything that's rightfully mine, the house, the cars, the assets. You can keep your mistress and your filthy secrets." A chorus of gasps and whispered exclamations filled the room, but I paid them no heed. My focus was solely on Theo, on the man who had once sworn to love and cherish me, only to trample on those vows with reckless abandon. As our eyes met, I saw a flicker of something akin to fear cross his features. A realization that the carefully constructed facade of his perfect life had crumbled, and there was no turning back. In that moment, I knew I had won. The battle had been hard fought, but justice had prevailed, and Theo would be left to pick up the pieces of his shattered existence, a living testament to the consequences of betrayal and disrespect. With a sense of finality, I turned on my heel and strode towards the exit, leaving a stunned silence in my wake. The war was over, and I had emerged victorious, bruised perhaps, but stronger than ever before. As the doors closed behind me, I allowed myself a small, triumphant smile. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. I was free, unburdened by the weight of Theo's lies, and ready to embrace the future on my own terms. Revenge, it seemed, was indeed a dish best served cold. In the days that followed my explosive confrontation at the Belmont family soiree, the shock waves of my actions reverberated throughout our once exclusive social circle. Whispers and furtive glances trailed in my wake, a constant reminder of the upheaval I had unleashed. Theo, for his part, remained uncharacteristically silent. Gone were the smug grins and dismissive attitudes that had once been his trademark. In their place was a haunted expression, a man broken by the weight of his own misdeeds. "You've ruined me," he hissed during one of our rare encounters, his eyes blazing with impotent fury. "Everything I've worked for gone, because of your petty need for revenge." I met his gaze unflinchingly, a small smile tugging at the corners of my lips. "Revenge had nothing to do with it, Theo. This was about justice, about holding you accountable for your lies and betrayal." He recoiled as if struck, his jaw clenching in a futile attempt to maintain his rapidly crumbling composure. "You're a monster," he spat, his voice thick with venom. "No," I countered, my tone laced with steel. "I'm simply a woman who refused to be disrespected any longer, and a woman who found the strength to stand up for herself in the face of your callous indifference." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving him to stew in the bitter aftermath of his shattered life. News of our impending divorce spread like wildfire, fueled by the salacious details of Theo's infidelity and financial misdeeds. His once sterling reputation lay in tatters, the subject of scathing whispers and pointed exclusions from the same social circles he had once dominated. Even his own family could not escape the fallout. Delilah, ever the loyal sister, attempted to rally to his defense, but her protestations were swiftly silenced by the weight of the evidence I had so meticulously compiled. "How could you do this to our family?" she demanded during a heated exchange, her perfectly coiffed mask of composure slipping. "Do you have any idea what this will do to our standing, our legacy?" I met her fury with a calm resolve that seemed to unnerve her. "Your brother brought this upon himself, Delilah. His actions have consequences, and it's time he faced them." She opened her mouth to argue, but the words died on her lips as she realized the futility of her protest. In the end, even her unwavering loyalty could not shield Theo from the weight of his transgressions. As the divorce proceedings ground on, each day brought new revelations, new layers of deceit peeled back to expose the true depth of Theo's betrayal. Financial records unveiled a web of secret accounts and questionable transactions, all meticulously hidden from prying eyes, until now. With the evidence mounting and the public scrutiny intensifying, Theo's once promising career began to crumble. Clients fled, partnerships dissolved, and his once lofty standing in the business world hung by a thread. Through it all, I remained steadfast, a pillar of strength and determination that seemed to unnerve those who had once dismissed me as a mere trophy wife. Gone was the meek, subservient woman who had endured years of disrespect in silence. In her place stood a force to be reckoned with, a woman who had reclaimed her power and refused to be silenced any longer. As the final papers were signed and the dust began to settle, I surveyed the wreckage of our once idyllic life with a sense of grim satisfaction. Theo had been brought to his knees, his empire of lies and infidelity reduced to ash and ruin. But there was no triumph in this victory, no sense of pride or elation. In the end, all that remained was a steely resolve and a newfound respect for the strength that had lain dormant within me for far too long. As I stepped out into the world, unburdened by the weight of Theo's betrayal, I couldn't help but feel a sense of freedom, a liberation from the lies and disrespect that had once defined my existence. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. I was no longer a victim, no longer a willing participant in my own subjugation. I was a survivor, a woman reborn from the ashes of her shattered dreams, and nothing, not even the ghost of Theo's deceit, could ever diminish that. The days following the finalization of my divorce from Theo were a whirlwind of emotion, a tumultuous blend of relief, trepidation, and a newfound sense of freedom that I had never dared to imagine. As I stood in the cavernous emptiness of the home we had once shared, surrounded by half-filled boxes and the echoes of a life I no longer recognized, a strange sense of peace washed over me. "It's really over," I murmured, my voice barely audible in the silence. Elena, ever my steadfast ally, placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. "It is," she affirmed, "and now you can begin to rebuild, on your own terms." Her words rang with a truth that I had spent years denying, a reality that had been obscured by the lies and disrespect that had once defined my existence. I was free, unshackled from the weight of Theo's betrayal and the suffocating expectations of a life I had never truly chosen. In the weeks that followed, I immersed myself in the process of starting anew. The divorce settlement had been generous, ensuring my financial security and providing a clean slate upon which to build my future. Gone were the trappings of my former life, the designer labels, the lavish social engagements, the carefully curated facade of perfection. In their place was a simplicity that felt surprisingly liberating, a chance to shed the baggage of the past and embrace a life lived on my own terms. I threw myself into my work with a renewed vigor, channeling the strength and determination that had carried me through the darkest days of my marriage's unraveling. My colleagues took notice, their admiration and respect a stark contrast to the barely concealed disdain I had once endured from Theo and his family. "You're a force to be reckoned with, Marianne," my boss remarked one day, a hint of awe in his voice. "Whatever it is that's driving you, keep it up. You're an inspiration to us all." If only he knew the truth, the depths of betrayal and disrespect that had forged me into the woman I had become. But I kept those scars hidden, choosing instead to bask in the newfound confidence and self-assurance that had once seemed so elusive. Slowly but surely, the pieces of my life began to fall into place, each day a testament to the resilience and strength that had lain dormant within me for far too long. Even as the whispers and sidelong glances faded, replaced by a begrudging respect from those who had once dismissed me, I found solace in the knowledge that I had emerged victorious, not just over Theo's deceit, but over the insidious doubts and self-recriminations that had once threatened to consume me. In the quiet moments, when the weight of my past would threaten to overwhelm me, I would remind myself of the hard-won lessons I had learned. That respect was not something to be earned or bestowed by others, but a fundamental right that should be fiercely guarded and defended. That love, in its purest form, was not a cage of expectations and disrespect, but a mutual embrace of strength and vulnerability, a bond forged in equal parts passion and admiration. And above all, that the path to true freedom began with the courage to demand better, for myself and for the life I deserved. As I stood on the precipice of a future that was mine to shape, I couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the trials that had brought me to this point. The pain, the heartache, the hard-won battles, they had all served to temper my resolve, to forge me into a woman who would never again settle for anything less than the respect and dignity she deserved. With a deep breath, I stepped forward, ready to embrace the next chapter of my life with open arms and a newfound sense of purpose. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. I was no longer the woman who had once cowered in the shadow of Theo's deceit. I was a survivor, a warrior, and a living testament to the power of resilience and self-belief. And as I gazed out at the horizon, I knew that the best was yet to come.